Okay, at the back of each scenario book, of which there are 3, they show the maps that are used. So this is the Learning Introductory and Intermediate Scenarios, Scenario Book 1. They all have the same cover except for this wording here. And then the back is different for each one. So it's pretty cool. So they'll tell you, so you can see exactly the map, the layout of the maps you're going to use. And what I'll probably do is I'm probably going to take a picture of this and post it here. And I'm just going to kind of read through each of the things. So like I said, this is going to be a long one. And kind of like what's the objective. Some of them are quite long explanations. Some of them I might read exactly verbatim. Some of them I'll maybe show the maps, because like this one I can show, these I can show. Then it starts to get a little unwieldy, maybe show this one. And maybe I'll just show some pictures of counters while I'm reading, so you can just kind of look at some of the eye candy from it. But just, you know, the verbal part will be the scenario descriptions. So that's that. Let me take a picture of this, and then so you can kind of take a look at this stuff. They expand it. So the first scenario is one that most of us will know. It is the battle for Brecor Manor. I'm just going to read this one verbatim. So this takes place at 9 a.m. on the 6th of June through 11 a.m. turn. So it's a 2-turn game on the 6th of June. As the acting company commander of Freezy Company, 506th Parachute Infantry Regiment, First Lieutenant Richard Dick Winters was assigned to the task of silencing a battery of 105mm guns that was firing on units trying to exit Causeway number 2 off of Utah Beach. So here's Causeway number 2 on the morning of 6 June. With a small force comprised of paratroopers from 4 different companies, Lieutenant Winters assaulted and destroyed the 4 guns, saving the lives of many soldiers coming ashore. For their actions that day, Lieutenant Winters would receive the Distinguished Service Cross, 3 of his paratroopers would receive Silver Stars, and another 11 would receive Bronze Stars. So basically you use this map. It is a learning scenario, which, you know, that means it's maybe not the best GTS scenario, but it will teach you a lot of the basics on movement, command, things like that. There are no events are used. I'm surprised they don't use dispatch points typically in the learning scenarios. You just usually put everything in the mug at some point. So in most of the scenarios, it's kind of like, to me, this reminds me a little bit of GCACW. They have like primary, secondary, and tertiary tasks oftentimes. For the Americans in this case, eliminate the German battery at Brecor. Let's see where Brecor Manor is. Let's see, it says it's on 26034. So 26034 is right so it says Brecor right there. So maybe we can zoom in a little bit there. Okay. So eliminate that. Secondary, have at least 4 steps of 8th Infantry Regiment, not in column, in hex 23032. I'm not going to worry about that by the end of the scenario. Tertiary, have at least 5 command points remaining on the 4th Infantry Division display at the end of the scenario. If they do not achieve this task, but does achieve both the primary and secondary, it is a tie. The Germans do not have victory conditions for this scenario, only the Americans. If the Americans do not complete their first 2 tasks, the Germans win. So there's some special rules and things like that. I'm not going to go through all that. Now, the interesting thing is on this second, the learning scenario, and it doesn't say even learning scenario number 2, it just kind of continues. This goes from 0900 on the 6th of June to the 11 o'clock, so the same time. And I'll just read this one because it is short. This is the battle for the batteries. So, a lesser known but just as important 2nd German battery outside of the hamlet of Holdy, was assaulted and destroyed on the morning of 6 June. Approximately 75 paratroopers under the command of Captain Lloyd Patch and Captain Knut Rutstein from 1st Battalion 506 PIR conducted a double envelopment on the German position and eliminated the resistance. This occurred at around 10 o'clock, shortly before the E Company assault on Brecor Manor, just 1.5 kilometers away. If you would like to add this scenario assault but to the learning scenario, the following changes will allow you to fight the battle for the batteries. It changes, if changes, additions are not okay. So basically what it's doing is it's combining both battery attacks, which is pretty cool. Just giving you more to do, more to think about. There's an artillery parks and all that stuff. So that's pretty cool. So that's the first 2 learning scenarios. really, you should be able to get those up and running. Someone already, and I cannot remember his thing, and if I remember, I will put it on here, but there is someone who plays through at least one or two of these scenarios already. He did it like right away, which I thought was pretty cool and pretty impressive. All right, let's go to the next scenario. We got a lot of them. Okay, and this is a little longer one. So basically, this is an introductory scenario 1. This goes from 7 o'clock in the morning on 6th of June to 11 o'clock on the 6th of June. So hours or turns are 2 hours. So it'd be 7 to 9, 9 to 11, and 11 to 1. So you're going to play the 11 o'clock turn. Utah Beach was one of the most isolated of the landing beaches on D-Day. It took almost a week before the elements from Utah would link up with Utah to the rest of the invasion force. As planned, the 8th Infantry Regiment, 4th Infantry Division was to land around the small beach town of La Dune de Verville. However, due to smoke obscuring the coastline and a few minor navigational errors, the assault force arrived on the Cotentin Peninsula, approximately 2 kilometers to the southeast of their intended target. This placed the Ivy Division's soldiers along a slightly less defended position on the coast. The 8th Infantry Regiment was commanded by Colonel James A. Van Fleet, a leader destined for greatness. Attached to Colonel Van Fleet's were elements of the 70th Tank Battalion, the 87th Chemical Mortar, and the 237th Combat Engineer. Also, this was the landing Brigadier General Theodore Roosevelt Jr., same family, were to push inland. So basically, this is a beach landing. This is the other game had this as well. Let's scroll over here to the tasks at hand. Basically, clear Utah Beach by the end of the 11 o'clock turn. Secondary task, exit at least 4 steps of the 8th Infantry Regiment. And tertiary, have at least 10 command points remaining. So I'm skimming over this big time. Special scenario rules, of course, a lot of little things there. Introductory scenario 2, we can just roll right into it, is basically the planned beach. So basically, as fate would have it, Americans would not land here, as I just read. But what if fate had not intervened? What if the Americans had landed in there? What would Utah Beach have been as bloody as Omaha Beach? This scenario offers you an opportunity. Again, this goes a little longer. This goes to 1 hour, 1 turn longer to the 1 o'clock turn on the 6th of June. Yeah. Warning, this scenario is not for the faint of heart. So there's that. I mean, the clearing the beach, exiting 4 steps, 5 command points, so less command points. So, you know, it's a little, it's going to be bloody. So that's interesting. I think this is, and now I'm going to state this, but it's not authoritative. I think this is one of 3 hypothetical scenarios in the box, which is an interesting thing to do. So, okay, this is introductory scenario number 3, the race to defend Sainte-Mere-Eglise. So now this is, yeah, so there's, just real quick, there's also a Sainte-Mere-Eglise ASL module. So that might be actually interesting to pull out like I've been doing. So here's Sainte-Mere-Eglise on the map. It's up here. Maybe we should zoom in on that real quick. You know what? Let's do that later. So Saint-Comte-du-Mont, which you hear about, the Causeway 1, Causeway 2 is up here, which is that other prior scenario is about. Ellenville, I'm not familiar with that town. Sainte-Mere-Eglise. So Saint-Comte-du-Mont, Verville. Oh, here's Verville. That's interesting. Sainte-Mere-du-Mont. There's recapturing Verville's scenario in ASL starter kit. Sainte-Mere-Eglise was a critical crossroads on the Cotentin Peninsula and therefore a primary objective for the 82nd Airborne Division. In the morning hours of 6 June, the 505th Parachute Infantry Regiment seized this town, giving the distinction of being the first French town to be liberated by the Allies during World War II. 505th is the one that I don't have on the, oh, there it is. Okay, it is on the screen. 505th is right here. However, liberating the town was the easy part. Retaining possession against multiple German counterattacks would prove to be the hardest task, especially while still trying to consolidate from a widely dispersed airborne landing. Only 2 battalions of the 505th PIR could be spared for this mission, while the last battalion was trying to seize the bridge over La Médère River, about 3 kilometers to the west. The Germans understood the significance at Sainte-Mere-Eglise and quickly formed elements of 3 different Kampfgruppen to retake the town. 2 battalions of Grenadier Regiment 1058 and the Mobile Reserve Battalion of 7th Army Sturm AOK 7 with assault gun support would attack from the north of town. While not part of the counterattack, the 795th Ulster Battalion Georgians would play a vital role in hampering reinforcement efforts. It is a closely contested fight. Oh, the 91st Infantry Division is going to be the division display we're going to use. It's interesting, it's made up of a bunch of different things. Kampfgruppe Kiel from the 709th Infantry Division, which I believe is one, but they're attached to the 91 Luftlanded Division. That's all interesting. So they kind of mix some things up. That's pretty cool. So what are the objectives here? Now here, the Americans and Germans both have objectives. American primary, retain the entire town of Sainte-Mere-Eglise, which is 3 hexes. Secondary, destroy more than 10 steps of German infantry. That does not include the 795th. Oh, okay. And tertiary sees the village of Nouvelle Plaine by the end of the scenario. I'm not going to show that. German objective, primary, sees the majority of the town, so that means 2 of the 3. By the end of the scenario, 2 of the 3 hexes must be in German possession, okay? Secondary, at the end of the scenario, have fewer than 7 steps of infantry destroyed. And the 795th Ost Battalion survives and does not surrender until 1 or 3 o'clock or later. Oh, I did not say the length of the scenario. It is the 7 a.m. on the 7th of June to the night of 7th of June. So that's 7, 9, 11, 1, 3, 5, 7, and then I think it becomes night. So I just lost count. Is that 7 turns? Or 8 turns? So that's pretty cool. That's a neat scenario. Now let's do something. Let's see here. And there is Sainte-Mere-Eglise on ASL. 3 of their maps. 3 maps. Each one is about the size of this, and it's 3 maps. There's Sainte-Mere-Eglise in the center of town. And this Sainte-Mere-Eglise pack basically is the... they don't do the landings. They are just all about counter defending against those counterattacks that is shown in the scenario. So it's kind of basically the same scenario because I think it sounds like the Americans already hold Sainte-Mere-Eglise and they're trying to defend against it. So that's pretty cool. Anyway, that's it in thing. And here's Nouvelle Plaine is over here. I think it's on this side of the map over here. The one, remember that other town we talked about, Nouvelle Plaine? So that's kind of cool. So just as a side note. And there's the box. The art they're doing now is phenomenal. There's a church at Sainte-Mere-Eglise that we're all familiar with. Okay, there you go. Okay, stick to the plan. Introductory scenario 4, night 6-5 to the night of 6-6. So full day, all the turns. Hypothetical scenario that covers just the first day of the invasion. Prior to 24 May 1944, the Allies were planning on airborne landing that would effectively cut the base of the Cotentin Peninsula, isolating Cherbourg on 6 June. In mid-May, Allied intelligence discovered the presence of the 91st Luftlanded Infantry Division, whose mission was to counter airborne operations. This German division was positioned at the base of the Cotentin, right where the 2 American airborne divisions were supposed to land. The drop zones were changed in an operations order issued less than 2 weeks before the invasion. What would have been the fate of the famed 82nd, or for that matter, any future airborne operations? So you can see the picture that I'll post. We've seen 82nd, so let's take a look at some of these 2 Germans. I think you're using the 91st Luftlanded Infantry Division, the 243rd Infantry, and the 82nd Airborne Division display. The primary mission objectives are, it's a little bit more involved, and you are using dispatch points. So this is a good one to start kind of using all those things. I did not look at that last one, use that, but that's okay. You can look at the books. Oh man, the objectives are quite long. Oh, and each division has their own objectives. This is where it starts to get a little squirrely, and maybe it's good to invite a 3rd person to play so there's a little less for one person to keep track of playing those Germans. 82nd, basically clear and secure the general area, including several locations. Secondary, contest or destroy bridges. Tertiary, contest or destroy 4 other bridges. The 243rd Infantry Division, primary, take a town by the end of the scenario. Secondary, take one of the following, a couple different towns or hills. Tertiary, maintain a line of communication to the Corps HQ. 91st, season hold the city of Sainte-Severe, so hold a city. Secondary, retain control of the bridges. And German unit occupies any hex. That's their tertiary. So that's that. I mean, there's quite a few things. It's a much more involved scenario, but it's cool is that you can see it uses a couple of the maps and using 3 division displays. It really starts to get you thinking about just more strategy. You know, how do you work together? How do you coordinate things as the Germans? I said using 2 maps, but it's one of those, it's the 9 map. So it's that smaller map that goes on the side. So it's a half-size map, or even that, a quarter size. I don't know. But I can't remember the town, the name. But maps 9 and 8. As you can see, I showed the picture there, but so this 9 is the smaller map here. So we're not going to look at all the details, but that's what that scenario is there. Okay, let's take a look at the next one here. In many of the scenarios, victory conditions, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to read it, and so this is some good video here, but victory conditions are often presented as 3 tasks: a primary task, a secondary task, and a tertiary. These are worth 15, 10, and 6, respectively. Tasks are tracked on the division display, but which division or units actually accomplish a task is not important unless otherwise stated. The individual division commander with the most victory points at the end of the scenario earns bragging rights. The winning side is determined by the overall average number of divisional victory points, i.e. take all VPs from one side and divide by the number of their participating divisions. Tasks are based on actual historical objectives and priorities. Some of the scenarios say you have to achieve 2 things on the more introductory ones, like that. So that's how those work. Hold until relieved. Intermediate scenario 1, this is night of 6/5 through 3 o'clock on 6/8 for the short scenario, or 6/10 for the long scenario. So what's cool is this is actually kind of 2 scenarios in one. And it's also cool because this is also hypothetical, but it covers the absolute worst case for the paratroopers of the All-American Division. Hold until relieved, a soldier's worst fear, but in many cases a standing order for the 82nd Airborne Division. This is the expansion for the stick to the plan scenario, so the one we just covered, allowing the German players to get their best shots in and the American players to see how tough they really are. It focuses solely on the fight that the 82nd Airborne Division would have had if fate hadn't intervened, and military planners hadn't changed the plan for the airborne invasion. This is not an easy fight and will ultimately turn into an attrition battle to see if paratroopers can survive until reinforcements from Utah Beach can arrive. So it's expanding that prior scenario. And let's see how the objectives change. The 82nd Airborne has survived to be relieved. This will require 27 steps of leg infantry to be holding a perimeter somewhere west of the Ledouve River. Secondary, clear and secure general areas, so they kind of go for that. Tertiary, season hold the city of whatever. German objectives: eliminate the 82nd Airborne Division by reducing the Americans to fewer than 18 steps of leg infantry, paratrooper and or glider. The German side receives 12 VPs for achieving this objective. Reduce this number by 1 for each turn it takes after 07 on June 10th turn to achieve this objective. So that's pretty cool. So you can end it on the 8th, or you can continue to the 10th and risk losing points and stuff. So pretty cool, pretty long setup, reinforcement schedules and all that, but also another hypothetical and just in another extension. So they did that on a couple of them so far, which is cool. All right, this is fantastic. The Lions of Carentan, intermediate scenario number 2, 7 o'clock, 700 on the 11th of June to the night of 6/12, so almost 2 full days, minus 1 turn. The 101st Airborne Division. So now we get the 101st out, which is pretty cool. The 101st Airborne Division was assigned the task of seizing the city of Carentan to protect the southern flank of Utah Beach and to set the stage for the link-up for forces from Omaha Beach. Coming out over here. Unfortunately for the American paratroopers, Major von der Heit and his unit, the Fallschirmjäger Regiment 6, had other plans. Following an initial assault into the Americans' flank between 6 and 8th of June, the German Fallschirmjäger fell back to Carentan, enlisting any German units they could find and dug in deep. The terrain north of the city has been flooded by Germans prior to the invasion. Also lots of non-crossing areas here. Made the perfect location to defend against a numerically superior attacking force. Ironically, this area was flooded as part of an anti-airborne defenses in Normandy. Little did Major von der Heit nor General Field Marshal Erwin Rommel know at the time how effective it would be against a ground assault from those same airborne forces. These German Fallschirmjägers would earn the title the Lions of Carentan for their tenacious defense of the city against 4-to-1 odds. After several days of combat and stubborn defense, their low supply would force them to pull out of the city on the night of the 11th of June. The lead element of the 101st Airborne would be Colonel Cole's 3rd Battalion, 502nd Airborne Regiment. So it's the yellow guys here. This regiment would take significant losses on 11 June against the Fallschirmjägers, while fighting ultimately degrading to hand-to-hand combat and bayonet charge led by Colonel Cole. For his actions that day, he would receive the Medal of Honor. Although not single-handedly successful, his actions and those of the regiment would open the door for the rest of the division to successfully dislodge the Fallschirmjäger. Okay, so this is going to be, like I said, intermediate, a little bit more involved. Is it just, yep, nope, more, a couple division displays, just one American. Oh, and you do get some independent units from the 8th or 7th Corps. 101st Airborne objective sees 5 of the 6 hexes of Carentan. Penetrate the secondaries, penetrate the line occupying any hex along this line, or a hex immediately south, southwest, or northwest, formed by the following hexes. Tertiary lose fewer than 14 steps. 91st Infantry is lose fewer than 8 steps of Fallschirmjäger. Regiment 6, by the end of the scenario. Secondary, prevent the Allies from penetrating the line. And 3, hold 3 or more hexes of Carentan at the end of the scenario. The city of Carentan is defined as. So, remember the points and what they get. The Airborne are getting the most points for getting Carentan. The Luftländer are getting the fewer points of defending Carentan. Interesting balance there. Okay, so that is pretty much that scenario. It's pretty straightforward. And now we can move on right into Utah and Omaha united at last. So this is intermediate scenario 3. This is 0700 on 6/11 to the night of 6/13, so it's a little long. Paramount to success of the invasion would be connecting the beaches. This would allow the forces to mutually support each other and allow for better supply to arrive where it was needed the most. Therefore, an early goal for the Americans was to take the area between the Insignia and Carentan. The Lions of Carentan scenario covered just the attack to seize Carentan, but in reality, this was only half the battle. Keeping the city would be another story. While Major Van Hyde was trying to retain Carentan, the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division was moving to reinforce and hold this critical piece of terrain. As is often the case in warfare, success or failure could be measured in minutes and hours. Due to a lack of communication, Major Van der Heydt chose to withdraw his forces from Carentan on the night of 11 June, when the lead elements of the 7th SS were only 5 kilometers away. On 12 June, the 101st Airborne would capture Carentan, as seen in the show Band of Brothers. On the night of 11th June, when the lead elements of the 17th SS were... On 12 June, they would capture Carentan and consolidate their defensive positions around the south of the city. During the same time frame, the SS Panzer Grenadier Regiment 37, with additional divisional assets, would organize for an attack to retake the city. Also talked about, but not that part was not shown in the show. On the morning of 13th of June, the Germans would launch an assault on the right side of the American defense. This would reach the outskirts of the city before the tanks of the American 2nd Armored Division from Omaha Beach would arrive to bolster the defense and ultimately break the back of the German assault. This scenario provides for both halves of this momentous battle at the base of the Cotentin Peninsula. A battle whose outcome would determine whether the invasion would continue forward, or if the Allies would lose valuable time by taking a tactical pause and trying to regain the momentum. So it's cool you use the same map. You should know that in all these they have a bunch of special scenario rules, a bunch of different events, exclusive rules to use. They have optional rules you can use in all these scenarios. Oh man, they have a primary, secondary, tertiary, and additional. Americans hold all 6 hexes of Carentan. Secondary sees the village of Arbors. Tertiary sees one of the following locations at the end of the scenario. The villages of blah, blah, or crossroads. So I'm not going to point them out, but basically, trying to get it to start linking up. I'm not going to read the additional. Well, what is the additional one? Per scenario, special rule number 7, the Americans receive 1 VP if the 17th SS Panzer Grenadier Division opts to use their commandeered French vehicles. Cool. German objectives: primary, occupy any hex of Carentan. Secondary, retain all the following locations of the village of and the crossroads. Tertiary, attach KG Height and both battalions from KG Heine to the 17th Division before the 0700-1300 turn. 0700-13 June turn. This can be accomplished on a total cost of 4 DPs per exclusive rule 13.1. They can be transferred after 0700 well, but the tertiary objective is forfeited. Here, back to the map that was used for the Sainte-Mere-Eglise. Is that right? Yeah. So where are we? Let's back out here. Remind you what this map looks like. Look at that. Look at that swamp. I bet you can't even move through that. Let's take a look at that. Let's see what you can do with that. And from the marsh, they can do it at a cost of 4 out of column, 3 in column. Okay, whatever, bro. Wheeled and tracked units may only enter exit woods, brushes, and marsh via heck road. Yeah, okay, good luck. And look, you can't even get, just go on land. This is the Tough Hombres, See the Elephant. Okay, 0700 on 610 to night of 613. Intermediate scenario number 4. This scenario depicts the baptism of fire for the 90th Infantry Division, and there's an argument to be made that the division didn't just see the elephant, but was trampled by it. However, this is not the full story. It is true that this poorly led, very green American Infantry Division did not get off to a good start in Normandy. The 90th Infantry Division would see 3 of its 4 senior leaders, the division commander and 2 regimental commanders, relieved following its first 4 days in combat. Originally, the division landed as the second wave on Utah with the plan to support 4th Infantry, pushed to take the port of Cherbourg. However, only a few days into the invasion, Lieutenant General Omar Bradley decided to change directions and surround Cherbourg before seizing it. This would entail cutting the peninsula, and that is where the 90th Infantry Division would come in. With limited intelligence on German positions and only 24 hours to prepare for the attack to the west, the division was thrown into the fight and asked to achieve a difficult task. The Germans, although suffering from losses during the previous 4 days of combat, were aware of their surroundings in the center of the Cotentin and had more combat experience. These seemingly small details would make a big difference when faced with the assault of the initial 2 American infantry regiments. The Germans relied on their knowledge of the terrain and good positioning to keep the Americans at bay until additional reinforcements could arrive. The scenario gives the Americans an advantage in combat power but a disadvantage in troop quality. It will allow players to test the old adage of that 1 great soldier is better than 10 good ones. So you're using this map here. The 90th Infantry Division activation chit is not placed in the mug and is the first chit in play. The 90th Infantry Division has a special setup action prior to the game. See Scenario Special Rules 1 and 2 for additional guidance. Okay, we'll take it. Maybe took a look at that. You got some different divisions, several different divisions going on here. Prior to initial setup and prior to playing the first chit, all 90th Infantry Division units can take 1 movement action. This replicates the initial movements of the division as they move forward during the cover of darkness. During the pregame moves, the light barrage is placed in hex, whatever. This replicates German harassing fire on the Lafayette Bridge. Primary, seize and secure the villages. Secondary, clear the town in hexes. Destroy the bridge at such and such. Or before the thing, or allow the 2nd Battalion 508th PIR unhindered movement across the bridge in order by the event. Okay. 91st Infantry Division, primary, retain the villages of 2. Secondary is retain 2 of the 4 X's of a city. And 3, tertiary, lose no more than 1 of the following 3 units. Okay, cool. All right, let's look up what's next. All right, intermediate scenario 5, on to Montebourg. This is night of 6/7/44 to the night of 6/11/44. During the planning for Operation Overlord, the port of Cherbourg was deemed to be vitally important to the Allies' success. So much so that the Utah beach, not included in the original plan, was added to the invasion by General Eisenhower in Montgomery. They wanted to seize Cherbourg as quickly as possible to ensure constant and effective supply for the invasion. The 4th Infantry Division was not only given the mission of landing as the assault wave on Utah Beach, but they were able also to seize the port of Cherbourg. Good Lord, Todd's commentary. To that end, their plans were to link up with the airborne divisions and then turn north following the road and rail networks to the port, while the airborne guarded the southern flank. Throughout the first week in Normandy, they were given extra combat power, both in the form of 7th Corps assets and several regiments from other divisions to aid in their advance. The Germans came to the same conclusion, and they saw holding Cherbourg as a vital part of defeating the invasion. They would reposition elements from 4 different divisions to block the advance of the 4th Infantry Division and protect this key city. Along with fortified positions from the Atlantic Wall ranging from Widerstand-Nesten along the coast to a more elaborate coastal artillery position, specifically the Azil and Karspik batteries. The Germans would delay the American advance by days. The city of Montebourg became a focal point on both sides as an objective on the road to Cherbourg. The tenacious German defense would force the Americans to change directions, deciding to surround Cherbourg first before seizing the port. However, the 4th Infantry Division had an even stronger will to overcome anything that would get in the way of achieving their objective, starting with Montebourg. So as you see, it uses map 5, E, and F. You can see the divisions involved. And just going to look here for the objectives here. Oh, there's another. The 243rd Infantry Division is also on here. Okay. 4th is to seize the city of Montebourg. Secondary, destroy the following coastal batteries. Tertiary, destroy that something battery in the town of Quinville. 709th primary, return one of the following 2 coastal artilleries. Crispake, Fontebay. Secondary, retain the Quinville battery. 3, retain the town of Montebourg. That's interesting. So it's the most points for the Americans to get it. So I don't remember what that was, 15 or something like that. And then just 6 points for them to retain it. Huh. 243rd is primaries, retain 2 of the following 3 locations, villages. Secondary, retain the villages of, and 3, retain the town of Montebourg. Okay, that's interesting. So they shared objectives, which is kind of cool. So it'd be fun to have 3 players, and hopefully everyone's remembering their objectives. These are the objectives that the Germans player situational objective they can decide to use, which will alter the scenario. However, you must forfeit a number of victory points in order to receive each objective. Voluntary retention of KG beginning, the 90. Okay, so anyway, there's a variety of things they can do. I'm not going to read that. This is a long enough video as it is, but some cool things you can do to like get different units involved, and you just lose some VPs for doing that. So pretty cool. All right, we got one more left, everybody. Let's look at what it is. All right, intermediate scenario 6, cut the Cotentin. You can see it uses 9, 8, E, and G. I was like, G, what's the G? Oh, the bulked scenario map, and there it is. So, little beep map that goes there at the bottom of the map, G. What's up, G? Sorry. And so, this is cut the Cotentin. This goes 0700, 614 to night of 616. So again, 14, 15, 16, so 3 days. In the rush to defend the port of Cherbourg, the Germans moved elements of 4 divisions north of the American beachhead, realizing that the original plan to seize the port as quickly as possible would be met with very heavy resistance. Major General Collins decided to change the course. He used the 4th Infantry Division to keep the pressure on the German front line, while at the same time turning the majority of the corps to the west to cut the peninsula and surround the port. Starting on 10 June, Lightning Joe Collins would commit the Green 90th. So we've kind of talked about that already, that 90th Division. After 3 days of hard fighting, he realized that this would not be as easy as he hoped. He then committed 2 additional divisions, the Veteran 82nd and Fresh 9th, to break the stalemate. These divisions would eventually break through the German front line and race to the other side of the peninsula, effectively isolating the port of Cherbourg on 18 June. Once the German commanders realized that they were about to be surrounded, most were ordered to stay and fight for the port. However, the 77th Infantry was authorized to break out of the impending encirclement on 17 June. As fate would have it, on that very day, its commander, General Major Rudolf Stegmann, was killed while reconning the escape routes. On the night of 18 June, Oberst Brecor, the new division commander, was approximately 8,000 men, would make it through the American lines. The scenario covers the American advances across the peninsula from the point it is expanded into the 7th Corps' main effort through the subsequent escape of the elements of the 77th Infantry. Historically, this culminated on the 18th, but for game purposes, the scenario ends on 16 June with the escape attempt. The time frame is compressed due to the player omniscience across the battlefield that did not exist for the men who fought to cut the Cotentin. Playtest comment: this scenario is balanced for players of equal skill and ability. It should not be used by a grognard to teach a new player. It will be quickly a lopsided battle. Interesting. That is an interesting read. So you see the maps it uses. I said it uses 5 displays. That's a lot. 5 divisions. I mean, so it's the 82nd, the 9th Infantry, the 90th Infantry, the 91st Luftlandde, and the 77th Infantry. Whew, man, it'd be a lot for the German and the American. I don't know, man. Okay, so the victory conditions, I think we know those already based on that. So that's why it's good to read the history, actually. Oh, man, there's going to be a lot of objectives here. So 77th Infantry primary is to move 20 steps. The 91st is to control bridges and some towns. 90th Infantry is establish control of the 5th Corps boundaries, control some cities. 9th Infantry, establish control Corps of the 7th Corps northwest boundary. Establish control of the southern western boundary, and don't let more than 8 steps escape. 82nd, capture and control the city of, secondary control both the city to other cities, and tertiary prevent the Germans from crossing to the north side of the Ledouv. Okay, so that is that. That's cut the Cotentin. That's all the scenarios out of this book here. Holy mackerel, that's a long video. But I appreciate you sticking around. If you did, I'd give you a big prize of a pat on the back and a big old hug and a kiss on the cheek. I was going to do all the scenarios in one video. Yeah, that's not happening, as you can tell. So that's that, and we'll talk with you all later. Thanks a lot. There's some really cool stuff in here, so fun stuff. All right, we'll talk to you.